Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are at our last Wednesday webinar of the year. I can't believe we've made it all the way. So congratulations if you've been following us throughout the year. Just to give you a little bit of background, if this is your first time joining us, we do this webinar through our Ready Fairfax program, which is Fairfax County's preparedness program, where we educate residents on how to prepare for, respond to, and recover from emergencies. So our theme in 2023 was Resolve to be Ready. If you can believe it, this was our calendar for the year, and we are in December, and our last topic for the year is making a neighborhood plan using our 5-step neighborhood guide in the Community Emergency Response Guide. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and then we'll give you a little preview of what's coming up next. So throughout this webinar, we're going to talk about how the preparedness, response, recovery all really relates to preparing your neighborhood and what we can do. So just to give you a little bit of information, we do talk about the phases of emergency management. As an emergency management professional, we talk about it in mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery, but it's really easy for us to talk about it in terms of before, during, and after for residents to give those actionable things that you can do. And then you can see our little mitigation wheel is in like two different in the after and the before. Most of the time it's going to happen before because we're trying to prevent future emergencies and lessen the impacts, but sometimes we don't know that they are actually a problem and we might have to go back afterwards and fix it. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So we're going to talk about our 5-step neighborhood guide. So we're going to go into detail with each of these steps and talk about how we can take our neighborhood and make a plan. So we're going to define our area. We're going to recruit our leaders. We're going to scout our area. We're going to build our team. And then we are going to plan our approach. So we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each of these. So how do we define our area? I want to be very clear that everyone, everywhere, their living conditions and where you live looks completely different. So this plan is meant to be flexible, scalable. You can really take this if you live in an apartment, if you live in a condo, if you live in a townhouse, if you live in a single family home. It doesn't matter where you live. You can take this plan and make it work for you. So what can you do to define your area? So we want to make sure that we have an area that we're actually going to use to put together our neighborhood plan. Our ideal size is between 20 to 40, but again, like if you have more houses than 40, say in your neighborhood, you might want to divide this plan and make block captains. We've worked with a neighborhood before that had quite a large number of homes, and we worked on an overall plan for their neighborhood, and then they broke down their response areas into blocks, and they identified block captains that led that block and took all of the rest of the steps and applied it just in a much smaller area. You want to make sure that it's in an area that you can communicate with everyone. So you don't want to have too many, because then the communication might get a little bit crazy. So you want to make sure that what you're doing is realistic. You also want to make sure that if you have businesses or schools or churches in the area, what does that area look like? We also need to draw a map. So we want to make sure that we are taking all of those elements of what is in your neighborhood and putting it down on paper. This is going to give us a great opportunity later on to make sure that we can identify exit points, where we might have any water that could cause an issue if there was any flooding. But then it also gives us an opportunity to create those pathways so that we can get to our neighbors' houses in maybe 1 or 2 different ways. So we're going to make it a little map that we can share. Step 2, we're going to recruit leaders. There's a lot of people in our community that are interested in preparing for emergencies. With our Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT, they are very active within their own communities and do have some neighborhood CERT teams that exist around the county. So you might want to just talk to your neighbors to see if anyone is involved in CERT. It's a great training and a great way to get involved. You also want to see if anyone is involved in an HOA or any volunteer activities where they might want to take a more of a leadership role and help come up with this plan. In addition, you might have some people in your area that are first responders or military or healthcare, and these people are really important because they have specialized skills that they can bring to your plan. And then you want to make sure that if you have anyone with any special needs, whether they are older adults aging in place or people with disabilities who may need extra help after a disaster, we want to make sure that we are including them in our process and making sure that we have a plan to help them as well. So how many leaders do you need? It's really going to depend on the size of your neighborhood. The span of control that we like to talk about is 3 to 7, with the ideal being 5. But if you live in a tiny neighborhood, or maybe you live on a street where there's only 3 houses, or in a cul-de-sac where there's 3 or 4 houses, each person could be a leader for their house. But depending on the size of the neighborhood, you might have to, again, break that up into blocks and make it look a little bit different. So you'll just want to, during the planning process, talk with your neighborhood and kind of figure out how many leaders you want and how you're going to break that up. You also want to look for leaders too. Make sure that you can talk to them face to face, kind of set the expectations. Maybe you have an HOA in your neighborhood, and it would be a great idea to bring this up at one of your community meetings. We can even come in and do a workshop with your neighborhood if you are interested in putting together one of those plans. And again, you can talk to CERT and see if there are any CERT teams that are already established in your neighborhood, and get them to be a part of the group, and maybe see if there's any specialized skills that they have to offer, or any trainings that they're willing to do to make your plan and your folks more prepared. So step 3. Step 3 has quite a few steps within it, so we're going to kind of talk through them and go through a little bit of nitty-gritty just in terms of making your plan. So step 3 is you're going to want to scout your area. So you want to get to know what threats and hazards could affect your area. So we do have the Community Emergency Response Guide, and within that, we have a lot of different hazards outlined that give information on how likely they are, what to do before, during, and after. And then, of course, throughout the county in different areas, we have threats that are more prevalent than others. So you want to make sure that you're kind of looking at that for your specific area. So we know that we all get extreme weather, especially during springtime, thunderstorms coming across the country. They could be quite powerful, produce wind. We could have tornadoes. We could see power outages. We could see flooding. There's a lot of different cascading events just from one hazard. There's other hazards that can come about. We can't rule out earthquakes, because we have had earthquakes that have happened here before, especially in, I think it was 2011. We had a 5.8 magnitude earthquake hit here. So while it is not our most prevalent hazard, it is still something that we do need to identify as a threat. So again, if you are in your neighborhood and you would like to dig a little bit deeper and talk to us about what hazards might be the most prevalent in your area, we would be really happy to do so. So this little chart within the 5-step neighborhood guide helps us identify the threat, what the likelihood is of it occurring, and then what the level of impact would be. Would it be a high impact, a medium, or a low? And we can kind of talk through those steps. But our most prevalent hazards here in Fairfax County are flooding, winter storms, believe it or not. It looks like we might actually get some snow this winter. And then, of course, just because we went through a pandemic, disease outbreaks is one of the top ones right now. So those are kind of the top three, but your chart can include many more hazards, and we can chart that just for your area. So these are just some of the more specified neighborhood hazards that you can use. You might, depending on where you are, if you are located near a highway, you might have more of a chance to see a hazmat incident. For example, if there was an overturned tractor trailer on the highway and there was fuel leaking, it could affect your neighborhood if it gets into the water system. If there's a fire, there's a lot of things that can happen. There are parts of the county that do flood more than others. So those, again, are really localized and more prevalent in some neighborhoods. We also, depending on elevation and where things sit, we could see some localized or coastal flooding that comes along with that as well. So what assets do you have in your neighborhood? And when we talk about assets, we are talking about all the things that are already existing in your community. What emergency supplies exist in your neighborhood? A great thing to know is where your fire hydrants are. Where are the parks? Where are the schools? Where are the fire stations? Are there any neighborhood clubs or organizations? Does your neighborhood have a clubhouse? That's a great evacuation point that you can utilize that you probably have access to. Do you have anyone in your community that is trained in a specialty? Do you have a nurse? Do you have a doctor? Do you have someone that is trained in CPR? Do you have an AED nearby? Does someone have an AED in their house? Does someone own a business, like, for example, a tree cutting company or a landscaping company, a roofing company? A lot of our neighbors, they work and they own businesses. So what specialized things are in your area? And you can find all of this out just by talking to your neighbors and having these conversations. You also want to make sure that you guys put together a list of what equipment and supplies is available. Some neighbors maybe have chainsaws and maybe have things that, can help fix up your house or your neighbor's house after an emergency. And just because you don't have those tools doesn't mean that someone else might have those tools and might be willing to help you and kind of lend a hand. And then if you do need to evacuate your area, who has cars? Does everyone have cars? Does everyone have the ability to drive, or do you have neighbors that might need assistance? So these are all things just to think about, and there is a little chart for you to fill out based on the asset type, what the description is, the location, and then who owns it, or who can contribute that. So these are just things that you can look through and kind of go through during your assessment phase. So you're going to also design a map of your neighborhood, and I talked about this before, but this is going to be super useful. And again, there's a lot of online mapping tools that you can use. We can also help you here if there are, specialized maps that you want to create. When we're doing our workshop with you and helping to create your plan, we can help you also create your map. So you want to make sure that you are listing out all the houses or the buildings that you're going to cover. If it's an apartment, you want to make sure that you're listing the floors, maybe even breaking out that map by floor. If you live in a condo, you might want to do the same thing, and you can have a neighborhood plan, but maybe each of those floors has a floor captain and is responsible for coordinating and communicating with that little set of group, that little group of people. You also want to have a neighborhood gathering place. It might not be right, by your house or right in your neighborhood. It might be across the street, but you want to pick a place where, and actually you shouldn't just pick one place, you should always pick two, to make sure that you're out of the way of first responders. So put, at least two places on the map. And again, this map is going to be something that you utilize as a group and disseminate so that everyone can be aware of what the plan is. You want to make sure that the place that you pick is safe. It could be someone's house, or it could be a community center, it could be a rec center, it could be your pool house, wherever might just be out of the hazard. And then also you want to check with neighbors to see who might need extra help getting there, or even getting out of their house, or assistance evacuating. If someone does have a disability, or if they speak another language, this is a great opportunity to also touch base with them and see what you can do to help communicate and make them fit in. So your neighborhood gathering place, and of course we just talked about this, but you are going to also want to make sure that that location is a safe location. So having like a little security plan of what you're going to do, making sure how to evacuate that area. If you guys are not safe there, how to communicate with your other evacuation residents that they shouldn't go there because it's not safe. You also want to make sure that it is accessible. Although most places are accessible, you do want to make sure that people with disabilities, if they use a wheelchair or any other medical equipment, that they have access to the location. And also, can it accommodate pets or service animals? We know that people don't leave without their pets, so it's something that we want to make sure that we are accounting for ahead of time. One of the things that we could potentially have, and this is all going to depend on your neighborhood plan, but having a triage area. So if people are injured and do need medical attention and basic first aid before first responders get there, is there anyone in your neighborhood that maybe has those special skills? And is there a location where you guys could gather and that can happen? It could even be someone's garage. It could be, a meeting place outside. But really, you just want to make sure that you guys are safe. And of course, while you're doing basic first aid, if you do need more help, you want to make sure that you call 911 right away and get those first responders going. So you want to build your team. Your team should be a diverse group of people. I bet a lot of us out there, including myself, don't know a lot of neighbors. So this is a great opportunity for you to meet your neighbors, exchange contact information, get to know them. Do they have pets? Do they have service animals? What specialized skills do they have? Do they need any assistance? And then create like a little phone tree or a notification chart. I know that a lot of people now use different apps to communicate that are secure ways of like making groups and communicating. And that's a great way to kind of just set up that phone tree, so you can either text or make a phone call, or send a video, however you want to communicate. And then you want to make sure that you go over the area that your plan is going to cover. So it is a great way for you guys to also get a feeling and get the layout of the plan that you've built. Another tactic that you can use just for accountability and safety, there are door hangers, and we have a template in the plan that you can print out. And it is for you to put on your front door so that you can post if you guys are okay or if you need help. This is not something that first responders are going to be looking for. This is just something that would be utilized within your neighborhood and your neighborhood plan. And it would be an internal communications method with your group to let them know if you're good or if you need help. Another great thing to learn is how to shut off all of your utilities. So if you need to shut off your water, if you need to shut off your gas, it's a great thing just to learn how to do it, to make sure if there are any issues that you can go and do that yourself. If you're not comfortable doing it yourself, you can always ask a neighbor to help you. Or if there's any, power outages and you want to turn off some of those appliances so that they don't surge or have, a short circuit, that's always a great idea as well. So we do have a little outline here to kind of show how to break up your team. And we do have this in a layout called the Incident Command System. And this is an emergency management tool that we use just to kind of break out our approach of how we're going to deal with an incident. So this is in the guide, and I'm going to just go through a couple of the terms so that you can see what it really means. So the incident commander is really the top person who is responsible and the leader of the whole operation. So who's your head honcho? Who's going to really take charge and make sure that you guys have a neighborhood plan and have an approach? Operations, they carry out what's needed. So this might be like your search and rescue team going door to door. It could be your care team, folks who are checking on individuals who might need extra help or have any specific medical needs. You can have folks that are in logistics, people that are coordinating resources. So do we need to plan for food? If we don't have power, does someone have a generator? Does someone have an extra refrigerator that people can move some of their food to? Who's going to coordinate transportation? Are there any special supplies that people need? And that person in logistics, or those people in logistics, can kind of help match those resource requests with the resources that they have. And then planning and intelligence. They're really monitoring the situation and what's going on. So gathering the information, maybe that's coming out through Fairfax County, that's coming out through alerts, and putting together a plan of what we can do. So maybe that person is getting the information from the county, and in their phone tree, they are giving it out to their neighbors to let them know kind of what the status is of utilities and any resources that the county has set up that you can potentially utilize. So what does your team look like? So we're going to plan our approach here. What does this search and rescue team look like? This really just means that we're checking on people who need help. Care teams are the folks that are going to triage and potentially treat people who are hurt. We can also have someone that is in charge of material and supplies. So any of those specialized equipment that we could utilize, maybe there is someone who has all of this information or these supplies already put together and maybe stored in their basement or in their garage, and when we need them, they can be utilized. Our transportation team, we might have people who have specialized vehicles that could transport people that are in wheelchairs or maybe have larger medical equipment. We might have folks that have large SUVs that can transport multiple people, because we do want to make sure if we are evacuating or going places that we are not in the way of first responders. So the less people we have on the road, the better. So if we can carpool and utilize those, that's really great. And then communication team, just make sure that you're in constant communication. It's always a great thing to just not communicate in an emergency, but to even practice, hold a drill, make sure that you text once a month in case anyone has any updates or any information to provide. You might want to check in to see if any neighbors are traveling for the holidays. So in case anything happens at their house, Susie in, unit 5 isn't there. And if there's an emergency that happens, you can either communicate with her that there's been an emergency in the building, if there's anything that happened in her unit. It's always great to let those folks know instead of them coming back and finding out that something happened. So that's a really, really good thing just to have standard practice. And then communications. So there's a lot of different ways that you can receive communication in Fairfax County. First, I do want to say that calling 911 if there is an emergency is the best thing that you can do. However, if you can't call because you are sheltering in place or there is an active threat where you need to be super quiet, you can text to 911, and you want to make sure that you give them as much information up front as possible. So the first thing you want to do is you want to give them the address of where you are and what the nature of the emergency is. The quicker you give them that information, the quicker that they can dispatch either police or fire or both, and help is on the way. So that's always a great thing that you can do. There's a couple internal things that you can look at. We have an emergency blog, and when there is an emergency, we have information that is posted to there. We also post information on a weekly basis just for preparedness tips. We also post if we are participating in any big drills or exercises. In March, we have a big tornado drill, and then in October, we participate in the Great Southeast Shakeout earthquake drill. So we do post some information about that as well. We do have an emergency alerting system called Fairfax Alerts, and it is a free public alerting system that you can use, and you can get traffic alerts, weather alerts, emergency alerts. If there's a missing person, we do have the ability to send what we call a reverse 911, where we send you a message to let you know that someone is missing, or even something is happening in your area and we need you to shelter in place, and give you those special directions. So that is a great system to opt into. We also send out a newsletter every month, the first Wednesday of each month, just like when we do this webinar. We have our newsletter that goes out through the system. And then we also have the capabilities here to use the emergency alert system and the wireless emergency alert system. The emergency alert system, EAS, is where we can send messages across the TV, scrolling at the bottom and interrupting TV to let you know that there's an emergency. And those wireless emergency alerts, those are the ones that come over your phone. They're not ones that you sign up for. You might have gotten the test message that happened earlier in October, where there was a presidential test that happened nationwide to test the system. So those are really good things to, just be aware of, like if those messages do come across. you do want to take them seriously. Aside from a presidential alert being sent, you might receive one of those wireless emergency alerts if there is a tornado warning or a flood warning. And this is where we would have a large amount of rain dropping in an area at one time, and a tornado warning. These are all sent geographically, and they're based off of the cell phone towers. So wherever your cell phone just bounced off of most recently, that's how you would receive that information. And depending on how long that threat or hazard is going to be in your area, if you drove into that area, once you hit a cell phone tower that is within the area that you are supposed to get the alert, your phone will go off. So an example of this is a wireless emergency alert is used when there is a known child abduction. So one of the things that happens is when you enter a state where there is a child that has been abducted, you might get that alert. So that's just a good real world example for that. So when you're planning your approach, one of the last things we're going to do is put it in writing. We want to make sure that our basic plan is written down. We can have some supporting documents, such as a shelter in place section, a mitigation section. Maybe there's, some stuff in your neighborhood that you guys want to take care of as an HOA to make your neighborhood stronger. You might also put together an evacuation map where you have several locations of where you could evacuate to and gather. So these are all really good things to kind of put down. And of course, the best part of it is that we have created templates to help you do all this. So there is a plan template. There is a neighbor survey. So it gives you a whole list of questions and some charts that you can fill out so you can get to know your neighbors and ask those important questions. And then there's an emergency kit checklist for yourself at home. So the checklist is a really great thing so that you can go in and really mark off that you have everything. And on the screen now, you'll see we have a lot of different templates that are on the website, and you can find those on the left-hand side. There is a little drop down, and it'll show templates on the side, and you can scroll through and download each one of them individually, or if you would like to download the entire plan, that's there as well. So there's a lot of great information that that you can use. So what is next? We are going to continue our webinars in 2024. We are going to host the National Weather Service and record a special video for our winter weather outlook. So we will be posting that and letting you know when that's available on the channel. It's not going to be live, but we will post it. And then we will continue on the first Wednesday of each month next year. We are really going to focus on partnerships, and emergency management is really all about partnerships and what other agencies and services in the county really contribute to preparing for, responding to, and recovering from emergencies. So we are going to have a lot of guests on our webinar to talk about a lot of different topics in areas that are super important to emergency management overall. So thank you guys so much. If you are interested in requesting a workshop, you can always request it on our website, or you can send an email, and we would be really happy to conduct a workshop for your neighborhood. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in 2024.